in pursuit of health and wisdom. Sapio with Buck Joffrey.
Hey everybody, it's Buck Joffrey here with Sapio, and today I want to talk to you about something I think is really exciting. The question is it possible to stop or even reverse the aging process? That's the question that brought my attention back to medicine. You see, at one point, I was a biochemistry nerd and went to medical school and even became a surgeon, but I practiced for about a decade, maybe a little bit less than that, because I wanted to pursue my non-medical entrepreneurial interests. But a couple years back, I really got interested and drawn into this whole longevity science world, and I couldn't believe some of the things I was reading. Basically, it woke up the science and medicine nerd that I used to be. And really, that's why I'm doing the Sapio podcast now. This stuff is so exciting, and I want you and everyone else to know what's on the horizon. And so far with my podcast, we've been focusing on a lot of stuff to increase health span and lifespan, like minimizing your risk of dying from cardiovascular disease and cancer. Now, that's critical information, and some of it's so easy to implement into your own life that to me, it's a no-brainer to do. And it's, kind of a low-hanging fruit to live a little bit longer and healthier while you live. But it gets a lot more exciting than that. And a couple years back, I started reading about some of the remarkable advances in longevity science, and it frankly just blew my mind. For example, it now appears that it may be possible to not only slow the aging process, but also to reverse it. The research behind that concept was published in 2012 by Shinya Yamanaka, and that won him the Nobel Prize. It's a little complicated, so let's start with a little bit of background. Each cell in your body contains the same DNA, but not all the cells are the same, right? Some cells develop into skin cells, some become heart cells, and others might become brain cells. And once a cell specializes, it stays that way. The cell is sort of grown up at that point. Now, if we could turn a specialized cell back into an unspecialized cell that could become anything, in a way, that would be sort of like reversing the cellular aging process, right? Well, that's where this whole Yamanaka factors thing comes in. Yamanaka factors are a set of 4 specific genes. I'm not going to tell you what they are because it's just a bunch of letters and numbers. But when these 4 genes are activated, they can effectively reset a cell, turning it from a specialized cell like a skin cell back into an unspecialized cell, which is called a pluripotent stem cell. That pluripotent stem cell can then turn into any cell type in the body. So think of a brain cell going in reverse to an earlier developmental phase where just a generic cell that can do anything. And then once it gets there, it can turn around again and become a different kind of cell, like a liver cell or something else like that. Now, this was a revolutionary discovery because it opened up a new possibility for the world of regenerative medicine and our understanding of how cells can be manipulated in terms of development. Of course, doing this in a petri dish with cells is one thing, and to do it in living organisms is another. And in the next few years, scientists started focusing on just that. So in 2016, the Salk Institute published a study using mice with progeria. Now, progeria is a disease that happens in humans too. It causes rapid aging. You might have seen it in humans. You see these kids aging and dying at around the age of 14, and they look like old people. So anyway, these mice with this condition were genetically engineered so they produced Yamanaka factors when they were given a specific drug, doxycycline. And what this allowed the scientists to do is basically to control when the Yamanaka factors were actually produced. Um, by the way, this way of doing this in science is called inducible expression, and basically gives scientists the ability to turn those genes on and off like a light switch. It's really cool. So when the scientists turned on the genes for the Yamanaka factors, they saw improvements in signs of aging, such as thickened outer layers of the skin and even a 30% increase in lifespan. Now, lots more research there with Yamanaka factors. In 2020, David Sinclair's lab at Harvard did something pretty miraculous as well. They were able to regenerate optic nerves in mice to restore vision. Now, optic nerves do not grow back after injury normally. So think about how exciting that is. Imagine one day being able to restore vision in the blind or to make a diseased heart brand new. David Sinclair, you probably know. He's a well-known Harvard geneticist. He wrote this book on aging research called Lifespan, which I think is definitely worth the read if you are into this stuff and want to get caught up on some of the current basic science research in the space. He's known for having this overriding theory of aging, which I think is really interesting, that the key to aging relies on part of your genetic code and not the genes themselves that we normally think are involved with everything, but the genetic material surrounding the genes. Like you think about punctuation and spaces in this long genetic code, the punctuation in the spaces, not the words, those are called the epigenome. We used to think those weren't really important, but as it turns out, they're probably really, really important when it comes to things like gene expression and folding of the chromosomes and all that sort of thing. And David believes that chemical changes in that epigenome ultimately are responsible for the aging process itself, and that the key to reversing the aging process is to reverse the damage to the epigenome. So, biological age could presumably therefore be reversed if you could reverse the damage to the epigenome. In fact, there are a number of tests out there right now that'll give you an estimate of your own biological age that are based on that kind of science. And with that in mind, you might find it interesting that in 2020, the Horvath lab here in California used Yamanaka factors to actually reset epigenetic clocks in rats. So what they did is effectively reverse biological aging of animals. And if they can do it in rats, there's no reason it can't be done in humans someday. So what does this all mean for us? Well, I would say it's still kind of early in the world of longevity science, but billions of dollars are getting spent in this space every day. The research is really well funded. It's moving really quickly by people who have billions of dollars and who don't want to die. So there's a race by scientists to solve this aging problem. And because of that, I truly believe that we're going to see some kind of revolution in the entire aging ecosystem that we have in this world within the next 20 years. Now, if you don't think that's exciting, I don't know what will excite you. Anyway, this is Buck Joffrey with Sapio. If you like what I'm doing here, make sure to like, share, and subscribe.